Okay, so we are studying Ein Yaakob. Again, this is from Masechet Berachot, the Gemara. This is selections from the Gemara, the more agadic type material from the Gemara, less of the legal material. And what I like about it is that one approach to Agadah, which is very common, is to say, well, when you have these stories in the Gemara, when you have these derashot in the Gemara, one approach is to take it literally and to say, yeah, it's kind of like a fairy tale. Say, there's a lot of fairy tales we tell children, and this is our quote-unquote Jewish fairy tales. I don't find it to be a very satisfying approach, personally. I find it to be it almost caters to a low type of or unsophisticated type of intellect, in my humble opinion. I hope it didn't come off the overly abrasive, but I just don't. Harambam says that if you take the what? Yeah, Harambam says that if you take the derashot in the Gemara literally, you're actually insulting the rabbis because you're making the rabbis seem like, God forbid, they're unintelligent. But okay, that's one approach, and it's a common approach. And the other approach, which is the approach of Harambam and Hachamim of Andalusia, and also the Geonim, Bab Ha'ayagon discusses it, is to understand that the Agadot, the Midrashim, they encode within them certain messages. And it was an art form of the Hachamim, where you had certain ideas that you want to convey to the public, and rather than just convey the idea, by saying it like the philosophers do, and they have the books of philosophy, which are very boring and uninteresting, they would encode the ideas in these midrashic tales, stories, legends, right? And in this way, they would stimulate us to try to think about what's happening here. What is the meaning of the story, right? So that's the approach that I like to take when I study the Ein Yaakob. So we're studying today a Gemara. You see it on the top of the page. You see the letter Tet. So we know, let me give you some background to the Gemara that we're about to read. And this background comes from Harambam. In Ilchot Yesodei HaTorah, Harambam describes the different creations that God created in the world. So we know over the course of the 6 days of creation, HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates different living creatures. Among the creatures that God creates, of course, is the animals. So we first saw mammals, reptiles, animals that have a certain programming, but don't have free will. That's one type of creation. What does it mean it doesn't have free will? So the way they are today is the way they were 1,000 years ago, is the way they'll be in 1,000 years. There's no intellectual development. So it's not like a monkey today is more intelligent than a monkey was 100 years ago. The monkey suddenly discovered the theory of relativity, and he has a new mode of transportation or a new way to prepare food, or the monkey says, I'm going to grow a banana plantation. They're programmed and they act the way they do. On the other extreme, you have the Malachim, and that's what we're going to be reading about today. The Malachim, according to Rambam, they are creatures that are pure intellect, meaning the animals are purely biological. The Malachim are completely intellect. It's almost like a separate brain, sechel nifrad, separate brain, but without the physical body. Now, you say, well, how can that be? I mean, the brain is physical. So I did a little research on the topic, and it ends up that it's not so simple that the intellect of a person is located in the brain as such. So there was a neurologist who studied the matter, and for example, he tells you that sometimes a person is born missing a substantial portion of the brain. And people say, oh my gosh, he'll never be normal. And somehow he is normal. Many recorded cases, a person missing one hemisphere, the other hemisphere. There was even a dramatic case of a person missing like almost the entire brain. And yet somehow these people, they have consciousness, they have perception, they have intelligence, and they can develop the regular motor skills that we develop, but perhaps limited in some ways. So it's not clear where exactly the intelligence is. In other words, what is the direct relationship between the brain as a physical substance and the intelligence or perception that we have? Another example, which illustrates, again, that consciousness doesn't necessarily reside in the brain as such. So many people have, many people know of out-of-body experiences that happen in the hospital when a person flatlines. So the person flatlines, and the doctors are trying to save the person's life. And there's many, as I said, this has been recorded in many occasions. And then the person who is essentially dead for a few minutes, he has a memory of what was taking place on the operating table. And he'll tell you, oh, the doctor did this, and the doctor did that, and there was a nurse, and she walked in. So the question then becomes, well, what did he see? Not what did he see. What was it that saw? Now, it wasn't his physical body, and it wasn't his physical brain, because his brain stopped working, and whatever it was that saw was hovering above the body and was looking down. So, again, the idea of an intellect as separate from the physical body, that's exactly what the malach is. Okay, so the malach is pure intellect, and there's different levels of malachim. We're going to be reading about the different levels of malachim here, but the different levels of malachim, the same way there's, you can have, let's say, a person is greater than, let's say, intellectually, then there's different levels of people, but here, it's almost like there's different species of malachim, right? To be exact, there's 10 species of malachim. So let me tell you a little about that, and then we'll read the Gemara. The lowest species of malach is called Ish. And when Yaakob, Vayavek, what does the pasuk say? We have the Koreh Torah, Vayavek Ish Imo. The Ish was a type of malach. We're going to have the type of malach here. And then there's like a higher and higher levels of malachim. Right, so there's 10 levels. There's Ishim, there's Malachi Hasharet, right? Different gradations, each one more superior to the other. So that's about the malachim. All right. So now let's read what the Gemara says. Oh, and then there's man. So what's unique about man is that we're a combination of the physical, of the animal DNA, animal biologics, and then we have that superior intellect of the malachim, although we're not as great intellectually, but that combination is what makes man unique. Right? You understand the idea? All right. ואמר רבי אלעזר בר אבינה, גדול מה שנאמר במיכאל, יותר ממה שנאמר בגבריאל. Now some of the malachim have names. The Mekubalim, they used to know some of the names of the malachim. My father had an ancient book in the library from 1,000 years, about 1,000 years ago, and it was a Kabbalistic book, and he used to show it to me. And in the book, you had the list of names of different malachim, and what the job of this or that malach was. So one of the malachim, by the way, just putting it out there because it was something that I remember as a child, there was a malach called Malach Fa'ur. Believe it or not, Fa'ur, yes. Okay, he showed it to me. It's an ancient Kabbalistic book. We have many old books in my library, Baruch Hashem. I was blessed. But we know. So the Gemara mentions some of the names of the malachim here. So Gadol ma shene'emar b'Michael, yoter mima shene'emar b'Gabriel. So two malachim that you see in the Bible. One is Michael. Now the words Michael literally means who is like God, meaning the job of this malach is to make the sovereignty or the power of God known in the world, right? Michael. So how does he do that? So Michael is in charge of Israel. Israel is a Jewish nation. So Michael is the angel that is in charge of protecting the Jewish people, guiding the Jewish people, of course, with God's instructions, right? So Michael does his job through Yisrael. You understand the relationship? Michael is a malach who is like God. And how do we know who is like God? Because there's a nation called Yisrael, right? Yisrael literally means God is the Sar, right? So Sar El, Yisrael. So the idea, because we are the ministers of God in this world. You understand the relation between Michael and Yisrael? So he says, the Gemara says, Gadol ma shene'emar b'Michael, the power of Michael is described in much greater terms. Mima shene'emar b'Gabriel. Gabriel is another malach that you see. I'll tell you soon where the malach Gabriel comes. But literally means, Gabriel literally means Gever El. So what does Gever mean in Hebrew? Who knows? A man, like a man. So Gever is a young man, a strong man. Gever El. So this malach is in charge of specific individuals. Michael is in charge of the entire nation. Sometimes the Nevi'im, and we'll see an example in a moment, when the Navi sees a malach, it's Gabriel that comes to the Navi, right? And it's the job of Gabriel to help guide the Navi and to help make the Navi aware of certain things. So Michael, in charge of the nation, is more powerful than Gabriel in charge of an individual. You understand the logic? The Ilu ben Michael Kativ, and we see a case where there was a prophet. One of the greatest prophets in the Tanakh was Yeshaya Hanavi. So Yeshaya Hanavi, he sees the Kisei HaKavod, he sees the chariot or the Merkava. He sees the chariot, metaphorically, the chariot of God. Okay? So Ma'aseh Merkava is considered one of the deepest, actually the deepest thing in the Kabbalah, is understanding what it means when we talk about the chariot of God. Of course, God is not physical, so why would we need a chariot? So what does that mean? So it has a certain meaning, but the point is, Yeshaya Hanavi sees the Hayot HaKodesh around the chariot of God. He sees the holy creatures around the chariot, and then as he's looking, the pasuk says as follows: Vaya'af Elai Echad Min HaSerafim. One of the Seraphim is flames, but it's not a flame of fire. It's a living creature. That's called a saraf, right? So saraf means a living creature, but they appear to the Navi in the form of fire. And what happened is that as Isaiah was looking and seeing this entire vision unfold, one of the seraphim flies to him and that saraf, that malach that appeared as fire, was actually Michael. And Michael, the saraf, had a message for Isaiah. So and by the way, the famous Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh comes from here. Right? We say in the Naktishach, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. So, okay. Ve'ilu gabe Gabriel ketiv, veha'ish Gabriel asher ha'iti behazon batehila mu'af biyah. So there was a case where God sent Gabriel to give Daniel a particular message, and he shows him a vision, and in this vision, something about the unfolding of history. So that's what Gabriel imparts knowledge to Daniel. So when Gabriel comes, it says Mu'af bi'af. How was Gabriel traveling? It says he was almost like blown by the wind. Mu'af bi'af. He was blown by the wind. But now, what does it say with respect to Michael? Vaya'af. What's the difference between Michael that it says Vaya'af and Gabriel that says Mu'af bi'af? He was blown he was propelled forward. The difference is that Michael has his own internal energy. He's flying independently, meaning he doesn't need the wind to fly. Gabriel, he's blowing in the direction of the wind. So the wind blows, and then it's almost like a person riding a wave in the ocean. Right, so you can have like a fish, it can just swim through the ocean really fast, doesn't care what direction the waves is going. That's Michael. But then you have somebody like, let's say a surfer is riding a wave, so, there's a wave, I'm going to catch the wave and I'm going where I need to go. So Gabriel is like the person catching the wave. He catches the wind, and the wind blows him, and that's how he reaches Daniel. Of course, by wind here we mean some spiritual wind that comes from the Almighty, and that guides the Malach Gabriel towards Daniel.
So when was it Abraham that had two guests who were Malachim or?
Yes, Shalosha Malachim.
They also were taken hostage in Sodom or something. Was that right?
No, they weren't taken hostage. What happened is that they went to Sodom because they wanted to save Lot, and they come to Lot, and they enter the house, and then the crazy people in Sodom they surround the house, and they're looking at the Malachim, they want to rape them. So they say, we want you to take us out. Of course they didn't realize the Malachim. The Malachim were not in trouble. They were okay. The ones who were in trouble was Lot and his family, because the Malachim were trying to explain to Lot, look buddy, it's going to be over soon. Come with us and we'll save you. Like, who the heck are you? It was a kind of strange situation, but Lot finally understood that it's real, and finally they rush him out. So the Malachim were okay. The pasuk says that they threw sanverim at the people. They threw these blinding lights at the people. They couldn't say anything, right? But those are Malachim also, correct?
Right. But they, in other words, were those two malachim, were they Michael and Gabriel?
No.
They were not.
They were not. Interesting. What was interesting is that those malachim took some sort of human form.
Right.
Because otherwise, how, right? So what you see from that story is that sometimes the malachim can take human form, and that is an interesting thing. I don't know if anybody's been into that movie, The Age of Disclosure. I mentioned it last week. It's on Amazon. So there's a lot of government officials, including Marco Rubio. I mean, not serious people, like people, very high level people in the army. Again, if it was just a person, I wouldn't. But there's a whole bunch of people. It was crazy. It was like an hour and a half movie where the whole movie was just interviewing government officials who all of them claim that the U.S. is aware that there is some sort of surveillance over the nuclear sites of America. And they don't know what it is that's surveilling them, and they just don't know what it is. That's why they call it UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. I think that's what it stands for, UAP. So it was a very interesting movie, and in my mind I was speculating, I wonder if these are the malachim, that the malachim are there to save us from ourselves and from our stupidity, and they're over at the nuclear facilities to make sure that nothing untoward happens. I don't know, I'm just speculating, it may be the case, but okay.
Or it could be China.
Or it could be what?
Or it could be China.
It could be China. Could be China. Yeah, but that means that we're in big trouble, by the way, because if it's China, that means they're in our airspace and they can do whatever they want and we can't get them. But okay. Look, there's a lot of strange things in the world. The pyramids at Giza, it doesn't make any sense. The technology that built the pyramids at Giza, they had to be aware of pi and phi and perfect orientation, north, south, east, west, and the perfection of the surface on which it's built, the flatness of the surface is something that requires a certain type of technology that back then nobody had. Nobody knows how the pyramids were built. So again, I'm not saying it was malachim, but I'm saying there's a lot of strange things in the world which need to be explained. But anyway, the Torah talks about malachim. So let's get back to the Gemara. May mashma dehai echad b'Michael ketiv. Amar Rabbi Yochanan atiyah echad echad. So the Gemara says, now how do we know that the angel, the saraf, the angel of fire that flew towards Yeshaya was actually Malach Michael? It doesn't say Malach Michael. It just says, Vayaf Elai Echad min Serafim. It says, one of the fiery angels flew towards me. It doesn't say Michael. It says, It says, Echad, one of the Serafim. Okay. Uchtivatam v'hineh Michael achad hasarim harishonim ba le'ozreni. There's another pasuk where Isaiah is saying that Michael, and now it's actually mentioning the name of Michael specifically. It says Michael achad min hasarim harishonim ba le'ozreni. One of the earlier angels, ministers of God, came to help me. So they say that angel that came to help him, that Yeshaya recognized, is referred to as Ehad, one. And when it says Vayaf Elai Ehad, is referred to as one. Ehad min ha-serafim. So the Gemara infers that the identity of the angel called one later on, Michael, is the same angel that's called one at the beginning, Vayaf Elai Ehad min ha-serafim. So in both cases it's Michael. It's called the Gezer HaShavah. It's a type of rabbinic derasha to associate one pasuk where you have something explicit with another pasuk where you don't have the same explicit thing, and by associating the two pasukim, you can infer, oh, it's Michael in this explicit pasuk, so it's Michael in this more ambiguous pasuk. All right. So far, Michael and Gabriel, we have that. But the Gemara continues and it says, Tana, Michael be'achat. In terms of rotating, or rather going across the planet, Michael can do it in one shot, meaning one motion, and it can encircle the entire globe. Gabriel b'shtayim. Gabriel can do it in two motions. So again, you see the greater power of Michael over Gabriel. Eliyahu be'arba. Very interesting. Eliyahu Hanavi, when he left, when he was supposedly time to die, he didn't die. He went straight to Olam Haba. So it says that he was walking with his Talmid Elisha, and he's trying to get away from his Talmid, and his Talmid is following him, and he's trying to get away from him, and then from the sky, because he knew that there was a chariot coming from the sky with Malachim that was going to carry him away. And eventually the chariot comes and it takes him away. And Eliyahu Hanavi became himself like a Malach. And it says that he can encircle the world in 4 times. Now, we know that Eliyahu, what does that mean? So the Malachim are here to help humanity, let's say, or to guide humanity, or to bring about certain changes in humanity, or maybe in the case of the nuclear facilities that I mentioned, if I'm correct, or if my idea is on track, then the Malachim are there to make sure we don't nuke each other. Okay. That's about it, which is incidentally a very comforting thought. Meaning, if I wasn't Jewish, if I didn't have Torah, if I didn't have Mitzvot, if I didn't have belief in God, I'd be like concerned, like humanity's ultimately going to nuke itself, right? There's going to be no humanity in 100 years. Or now they're talking about AI taking over. Okay, they always have something else. But if you think about the fact that God sends Malachim, and the Malachim are here to protect us, you feel very good. Like you don't feel so freaked out about like these types of things. And I don't, by the way, because I really see the protection of God. So one of the things that happened is normally when people go to Olam Haba, they're in Olam Haba. Okay, that's it. Eliyahu Hanavi is one of the exceptions. Eliyahu Hanavi, he's still actively involved in what's happening in this world. And that's why many Chachamim, they see Eliyahu Hanavi. That's why before the Mashiach comes, Eliyahu Hanavi is going to set the stage for the arrival of the Mashiach. So before the Mashiach arrives, the pasuk says, "Hinei anochi sholeach lachem et Eliyahu Hanavi lifnei bo yom Adonai hagadol vehanora." God is saying, "I'm going to send you Eliyahu Hanavi before the arrival of the awesome day." But there's going to be some crazy things happening, and the Mashiach is going to come. So Eliyahu Hanavi is going to come to warn us or prepare us for this occurrence, right? So Eliyahu Hanavi became like a malach in as much as he's still involved in the guidance of Am Yisrael. You understand why Eliyahu Hanavi is mentioned? So Eliyahu Hanavi is not as strong as Michael or as Gabriel. Be'arba. He has 4 motions in order to encircle the world. Umalach hamavet bishmona, and unfortunately, the angel of death also is an angel in malach, and he encircles the world in 8 motions.
So what's the like this whole midrash? What's the purpose of 4 times, 8 times?
Right. So first of all, let me finish, and then I'll address that. Okay. Let me finish the thing because we have 3 more words. If it's a time where there's a lot of people that have to be killed, like in a war or something like that, then the Malach HaMavet becomes like Michael, and he can encircle the world in one shot, meaning he's given the ability to kill as many people as he needs to kill. So that's end of the Gemara. Right? So there we have it. So we have the different Malachim, we have Eliyahu Hanavi, we have Malach HaMavet, and we see that there's different rankings. Now, Albert just asked a question. What is the purpose of this Gemara? The purpose of this Gemara is as follows. Yaakob Avinu, at the end of his life, he says, "Hamalach hagoel oti hu yivarech et hane'arim." Yaakov Avinu says, there was an angel that protected me, and he gives a beracha that this same angel should bless my sons, Ephraim and Menashe. Okay? Now, there's another pasuk that says, "Ki malacha v'sabelach lishmorcha b'chol derachecha." God sends malachim to every individual, and these malachim are here to protect us. Okay, I'm giving you another pasuk, right? Now, the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says that these malachim, they follow the person. So, for example, when a person Friday night comes home, the malachim are with him. When he gets home, the malachim are with him. The song that many people sing, Shalom Aleichem Malachei Hasharet, is based. Some people don't like the song. Okay, I'm not getting into that. It's some people say, "Oh, you're praying to Malachim." I don't think it's praying to Malachim. That's my opinion. So I don't have a problem saying it. But I'm putting that controversy on the side. Okay, so the idea of the song is based on the Gemara that says that the Malachim are with you. And that's why at the end of the thing we say, we say that actually at the end, right? So why do we bring this Gemara? Because our consciousness is not like the consciousness of Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu, he was very developed spiritually. And therefore, for him to see Malachim was like for me to see this pair of gloves on the table. It wasn't such a great effort. right? He saw Malachim, Malachei Elohim Olim V'Yoredim Bo. At the end of Parashat Vayeseh, he has a group of Malachim following him as he's about to enter Israel, right? Vayishlach Malachim, some people say the Malachim he sent to Esav were actually Malachim, not just messengers, but actual Malachim. Okay, so for us, this whole thing seems foreign, but it's foreign because we don't have the mental capacity, we haven't developed the mental capacity to experience malachim. Now, I'll give you an example. I have a book on the brain, strange book. So if, like, God forbid, let's say you blindfold somebody for the first year of their life, they may not be able to develop the mental capacity to see even if you remove the blindfold, right? Because the brain has to develop certain circuitry, right? And by blindfolding the person and preventing the brain from developing the circuit, I don't know if it's a year or 5 years, whatever it is. The point is, the brain needs to be able to develop that circuitry. So just because the brain has a potential to allow somebody to see, doesn't mean that that potential will be actualized. So the same thing with malachim. So we live in a society where there is an overemphasis on physicality and an underemphasis on spirituality. And because of that, we haven't developed the capacity to experience the malachim. So the Gemara is saying, yes, there are malachim, and we can tell you some very specific information about the malachim. Sometimes their name. What?
From where do they have
that I don't know. But Torah Shebe'al Peh.
They didn't experience malachim either at that time.
Some of the Chachamim saw Eliyahu Navi. The Gemara says we have stories. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi saw Eliyahu Navi. Many stories with him. Rabbi Yosef saw Eliyahu Navi. So there was different. They did experience something. There was Rabbi Ishmael Kohen Gadol saw one of the Malachim in Kodesh HaKodashim when they entered Yom Kippur. So part of Jewish thinking is that's Jewish thinking, which is to say we don't live in a three-dimensional world. We just experience a three-dimensional matrix of our own making, but that matrix, it limits our ability to see what's outside the matrix. And that's why the Chachamim wrote this Gemara, to become aware of it. And by the way, like, there's so many weird coincidences. I'm sure happens to everybody. And I keep telling you these weird things that happen. Anytime I study Torah, the craziest things happen. And like coincidences with the Torah that I'm studying. Like suddenly, I'll get a question like exactly on the topic that I was studying that, and somebody. It's like so many weird things. I believe that we do experience malachim. Maybe we don't experience the presence of the malach as such, but we experience malachim. You understand?
Let's say Rambam would agree that he is actually around it, or it's just more figuratively that he's.
I think literally, meaning the existence of malachim and the existence of Eliyahu Navi as a spiritual being that is here somewhere, somehow guiding Am Yisrael, governing Am Yisrael in some manner or another. Rambam would agree with that. Rambam has many chapters in the Moreh about the malachim. Right?
A malach can be in thousands of homes at the same time.
Of course, no, there's many malachim. Ki malacha v'sabelach. There's malachim for every individual.
We keep the door open for Eliyahu Navi on Pesach.
On Pesach, right? That's a midrash. That because the reason we do that is because we believe the Mashiach is going to come, and they were like Eliyahu Navi is supposed to come to announce the arrival of the Mashiach. So we opened the door, saying we were looking forward to seeing Eliyahu Navi come and say the Mashiach is about to come. Yes.
Okay, so we're not. It's not that he can be in 50.
No. Eliyahu Navi is not the malach. That's right. Every individual has his own set of malachim. Mm-hmm. The tens of thousands, the hundreds of thousands, and millions of malachim. So every individual has his own set of malachim. You understand the idea? So when we say Ki malacha v'savelach, we don't mean Eliyahu Navi. Eliyahu Navi is more national, global issues. But rather, we mean, what I meant by that is every individual has malachim that help him.
Do we actually have the thing where we keep the door open and the chair for Eliyahu Navi, or is that just the Ashkenazim who do that?
I don't know. I don't know if there's a Syrian custom. I was explaining what the basis of the custom is. I don't know that Syrians do that.
What, you talking about Pesach?
Yeah, Pesach. Do you do that?
Cup.
Right, the next cup Eliyahu Navi, yes, but he's saying opening the door. I think that's an Ashkenazi custom. Oh, we do that? Okay, no, so maybe If your father, he's from the old country.
For a minute, my brother-in-law is Ashkenaz. He always insists.
Yeah? Okay, so maybe it's Ashkenaz. I don't know. And then you're there.
The whole time? No, at the
There's a certain part where you open the door for a little
No,
bit.
yeah, you get a little cold in and
After
you
contact
his own.
But I've heard also that not even necessarily for the Arabi, it's also just to invite any guests. Right? Called the Chabini Tevi Yachol. So like,
You're very
if
nice.
the door,
Yes,
anyone
yes.
Come in, can come in.
Yes.
You can't say
Right.
everyone can come in and you have your door locked.
Yes, okay, nice. I'll share with you a nice story just to illustrate.
But
Again,
but the Arabi was a person, so how could he convert into becoming Malach?
because I said when he died, he went straight to Olam Haba. He didn't really die as such, meaning normally death is a experience that happens through the Malach HaMavet. He was spared that experience, and it's explicit in the Pesukim that he was walking with Elisha, his Talmid, and then they saw in the sky this chariot, and the chariot comes down, and Eliyahu is taken by the chariot, and he says goodbye to his Talmid.
So he still has his physical body?
No, I don't think so. No, I think he lost his physical body. Right? So what exactly happened and how that transformation took place? But what I said was normally the person goes to Olam Haba and he's happy there, and in this case he's still connected with Olam Hazeh somehow, like the Malachim. So I'll just share with you. Again, I think anybody should be able to experience Malachim in his or our life. I don't think there's anything unique about experiencing. I'll just give you like an example of what I consider to be a Malach. So, as you know, I'm a technology attorney. I worked for a company about a year ago. Then I'm doing something else now. But so the company would have these conferences. So they took us to Puerto Vallarta, and I'm sitting on the balcony of my hotel. I just got there, and I had this idea in my head that I'm going to be Borel Nisosea Kedusha. I'm going to be the first person studying Torah by the speech, and God knows how much time. I don't know. I'm just like so I'm on the beautiful balcony studying Torah, and I'm like, just enjoying myself. That's for me is the best thing. So and then I feel the presence of my father, and like it's really strong. Like I feel that presence, and okay, whatever. I decided to go for a walk by the beach, and as I'm walking by the beach, I want to put some music on, and I get a new version of "Here Comes the Sun" on my YouTube feed. I'm like, oh, I love that song. Here Comes the Sun. Anyway, very nice. I see one of the workers, hotel workers, and what is he humming? He's singing, "Here Comes the Sun." Okay, whatever. So I become friendly with him. I walk over, like his name is Hijo. I don't know, probably mispronounced it. Some Spanish name. I'm from Venezuela. I said, oh, I'm from New York. You're from New York. Okay, let's start talking. And this, I said, I noticed you like that song. Here Comes the Sun. Yes, I like it. So I show him the version. It was Paul McCartney singing it with Paul Simon or something like that. Yeah, it was a really good song. It was a really good version. Yeah, it's an amazing song. So I give it to him. He's like, wow, there's a great song. Like, it's like, both, I was listening to it while you were singing it. So I thought you would like to hear it. So he says, I'm from Venezuela. I said, yes, I know. You told me that. He says, no, there's a person called Carlos Gardel. He was a great singer in the 50s or something, 40s. I said, why is he telling me this? Okay, whatever. He says, no, Carlos Gardel was you have to listen to Carlos Gardel. I said, where's he from? He says, from Argentina. And he's the best Spanish singer ever. I said, okay. So he put it on my YouTube feed, Carlos Gardel. Okay, whatever. Like, it was kind of funny listening to it, but okay. Be that as it may. Anyway, a week later, my cousin, Rabbi Yossi Biton, the rabbi in the synagogue, one of his kids got married, and they had a big wedding in Argentina, and everybody was there. And then I could not go for whatever reason. But we started a WhatsApp group for all the cousins, Los Primos, all my cousins in Argentina. We said, you know what, let's keep the positive vibes going. So we started a WhatsApp group, and everybody's happy to see me, like on the WhatsApp group. But still, they tell me about the family and about this, and they start telling me stories. And one guy says, my father and your father, they grew up together. They were best friends. I said, wow, really? Okay, whatever. Mario and my father were best friends. Mario is the name of the guy. Mario, my father used to go with your father. They used to go to this gaucho village where they used to buy this leather goods. And he says, but your father, he used to go there and he used to like these songs by Carlos Gardel. He would always look for Carlos Gardel songs. You want to buy records of Carlos Gardel? I'm like, what? Carlos Gardel. I'm like, are you kidding me? The story was so absurd. It was like, when I tell you the story, I'm thinking, you guys probably think I'm making it up. Like, it can't be. So I'm just giving you an example of, Malachim. Obviously, it's like, right? Like a malach is saying, yes, 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 this is real, yes. And it happens all the time. Whatever. It was
Why do you say to Malach and not Hashem doing it?
I mean, because, okay, first of all, it is Hashem, because Hashem is sending, because the Pasuk says, Ki mal'acha v'savelach. God sends your malach to you and instructs the malach what to do. So I 100% agree with you that it's God's initiative propelling the malachim and telling the malachim, do this, do this, do this, do this, 100%. And that's how God interacts with us through the malachim.
Crazy.
Right? Yeah. And again, I think everybody has these strange stories, but you just have to wake your mind up. And if you start paying attention, what?
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to think of I think the hang up is, in other words, right, in other words, this is one malach thinking of, because we're so caught up with Western society of malach and angel, devil, that it's a physical form of an angel, of somebody that God is sending, that we have these thousands of human-like bodies that are spiritual. No. Malach is more of a messenger. In other words,
Yes.
In other words, the moon is a malach, right? You know,
So look.
everything is a messenger potentially.
Look,
Everything that's around.
the malachim, the malachim, as Harambam describes them, are these intellectual living creatures without human form. Having said that, you're right that sometimes a person can be a malach. Maybe I met somebody and I needed something, and that person was put there by God, and he's a physical person, meaning he's a biological person. He's not what we would call a malach, but we call him a malach because God sent him to help me with something. Oh my gosh, this person was mamash malach. I can't believe it. My car got broke down. I had a flat tire. I'm in the middle of nowhere. AAA is nowhere to be found. I'm like, where? How the heck am I going to get out of this? Person drives by. Can I help you, sir? Yeah, you can help me, please. That's a malach. That's a human malach. So there's human malachim, of course. We believe God runs the world and has different ways to surround us with His grace and loving kindness, as God does. But there's also the malachim. Now, what happened, that story wasn't something that a human being can plan, right? No human could have planned that. It was, just different things in different places in the world that all came together at the same moment in time. It was ridiculous. My cousin got married. We set up the WhatsApp group. I'm listening to, here comes the son. He's singing here, say we become friendly, and he's like, we're talking, and he tells me about Carlos Gardel. Okay, whatever. Anyway, okay, gentlemen, I think we'll stop here. Any questions?
What Gemara is this from?
Masechet Berachot, first chapter. Yeah, Perek Aleph of Masechet Berachot.
And the difference between, so you have malachim and you have nevuah, I guess.
Right.
We're tapping into those wavelengths. In other words, it's out there.
Yes.
It's out in the, we just have to tap into it. And that's why somebody who's on that level, Rambam will say he has two different chapters, one on malachim and one on nevuah.
Yes.
Tapping into these.
And they're connected, because the Rambam says that the nevuah, when the Navi has a nevuah other than Moshe Rabbeinu, it's always through a malach that delivers the message to the Navi.
So the malach is involved
in the nevuah. So who delivers to the mind of the Navi the message? The malach. You understand the idea?
and that.
So that's one of the jobs of the malachim.
It's a message. Prophecy is a message.
The prophetic vision is generated in the mind of the Navi through a malach that's sent to give him that prophetic vision. Right? Vayaf Elai Yachal Min HaSerafim. And then he sees what he sees and he understands what he understands.
Very good.
All right, gentlemen. All right, let's go Su.